My son, heed my words and treasure my commandments within you. These are words that my father told me about growing up. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I most of the time would hear these words in one ear and out the other. And if you guys have been following this channel for any amount of time, I want to say welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. It's a great place for us to talk about a lot of different things. And one of the main things I talk about on this channel is women and men's interaction with women. You see, this is not a red pill account. This is not an account that talks about hating women or anything like that. This is rather an account that talks about the reality and the experiences of guys with women and my experiences with women and the truth, right? Because the truth will set you free. And guys, my father growing up would tell me these stories. He would tell me these things and I wouldn't really listen, right? Because I was very hard-headed, I was very stubborn, and I didn't like the truth at that time, right? I didn't want to believe that my father was true. You see, myself as well as many other guys growing up in the 21st century, right? We grew up in this world where we were told one thing by the world and another thing by hopefully a good traditional father or father figures. And for one reason or another, you know, that idea, the world, right, the blue pill reality, right, that a lot of guys hear about and they get indoctrinated with, right, the Prince Charming, the white knight, the nice guy syndrome, so to speak, right? I bought into that hook, line, and sinker. And I think a lot of it was because of some strong feminine roles that I had in my life. I recognize that, but I also realize as a man, you have to take responsibility, and I take responsibility because as I got older, I continued to buy into that mindset. I continued to buy into that way of thinking, right? And this video, guys, I hope this video helps out a lot of guys out there who are struggling with this and are struggling with women, right? Because my dad, he was right. He was right about women, and he was right about how they acted, right? And there was a reason. I truly believe, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I hate saying that, but I'm going to get a little biblical on y'all, okay? All things work together for good to those who are called according to God's purpose, right? And I believe that can be true of anybody. If you believe in God's purpose, you believe that everything can be worked together for good, because there's some things that happen in this life, let's be honest, that are just really, really cruddy, terrible things. And we can either sit back and moan, and we can be depressed, and we can be victims. We can be frustrated, right? We can be annoyed at the reality. Or we can choose to see it for what it is, accept it, and look at the good that might come from it, right? I know that's gonna maybe bend some people the wrong way. Trust me, it's hard for me to deal with sometimes, but you know, if you understand God as your father, right? He's a good father. You gotta also realize that people have the ability to make their own choices, right? People have the ability to choose good or evil, and sometimes people are going to choose evil. Doesn't excuse it, doesn't excuse the severity of it, right? At the same time, we can grow from it. We can either let it break us or make us, right? We can either choose to be victims, right? Or choose to grow from it. And I think, honestly, if I'm being real, with current things, past things, right? You know, we don't give our parents enough credit. We really don't. In this day and age, guys, if we really think about it, look around, look at the environment, look at the world around you, look at how much of the world is telling you to not trust your parents, to do your own thing. I don't know how many times I've seen it recently in these ads and movies and all these different things. It seems like it's being shoved down our throats now about how it's good to just leave your parents, it's good to just ignore them, it's good to just forget about them. It's good to, go against their advice. And I'm not saying that every parent out there is perfect and knows exactly what's good for you, right? There's a lot of parents who, they want their kids to be this or that, and maybe you grew up in a strict environment. I did in many ways. But I believe that many parents truly want what's best for their kids at the end of the day, right? And maybe they don't know how to be perfect parents. None of us will be. But I believe most of them do want what's best for us. And the crazy thing is, guys, I keep circling back to this, but, this video is going to be pretty broad, with women, obviously, but just life, because my dad was right about so much when it came to women. I remember growing up, he was so big on Proverbs, and I've talked about this in my other videos if you guys have heard it, right? But he was so right. He was so right on so many things, and Proverbs was his backdrop for it. He had life experiences. He came to the Lord later in life, but he was so right on so many things. And when I read Proverbs, I've been reading Proverbs pretty much every day for the last few months now, and it's interesting how a lot of these things become ingrained into you, right? We always look to the world and look to these other things for wisdom, but it's funny, a lot of these books, a lot of these things are based off of Proverbs, right? You can just read Proverbs and look at the OG source material. You can look at the OG, wisdom, right? And you look at all these things, and it tells you exactly what to look for in a woman and what to avoid, right? And as men, we're so stupid, right? As men, we're so stupid. Like, I bought into the lie when I was in my older teens, right? I always had the traditional mindset. I always had the quote-unquote red pill mindset. I hate using these terms because they've been so used and abused. But there was a long time in my life, and I struggled with it for years, buying into the, blue pill mentality, right? Just be nice to a woman, don't ever judge a woman, right? Just let her do what she wants. Just kind of wait on her hand and foot. And I noticed I would get into these routines where I would be with women, and I would start out as a man. I would start out, with boundaries. I'd start out, knowing what I wanted out of life. And very quickly, I would just succumb to the comfort, right? And I would succumb to what she wanted, and anytime there's any sort of pushback, right? If I was like, I'm not okay with this, or I don't feel like right with this, I would just eventually give in, right? A very weak man. And I realized that, right? If I'm being honest. And I think a lot of guys realize that. A lot of guys understand that. A lot of guys are waking up and they're being real with themselves, all right? A lot of guys are just realizing, like, hey, I haven't been the guy I wanted to be. I haven't been true to myself. I haven't been true to what I want. I haven't been true to, like, my values. I haven't been true to myself as a man. And even if if this is your first time really challenging that, like, this video's opening your eyes and you're like, you know what, I'm really not being the man I thought I was going to be. Good, right? Let this be your wake-up call, because going back to what my dad said, going back to what Proverbs said, right? It talks about the woman to avoid, and oftentimes it's easy to throw this off, right? Because a lot of guys, if you're raised in a Christian environment, you're told that, to stay away from the adulterous woman, right? Don't commit adultery. And we tend to shrug off sexual immorality, right? We tend to shrug off, I'm speaking for myself here, right? We tend to shrug off like everything else that doesn't surround this. But guys, we got to be careful, because it all starts with the rebellious woman, right? It all starts with the woman who is very masculine in nature, right? Which is a red flag. It starts with the woman who's loud, who's boisterous, who doesn't like to stay at home. You can look at this in Proverbs, and the world's going to tell you something completely different. The world's going to tell you, you need to find, boss babe. You need to find you a woman who's chasing the bag. There's nothing wrong with a woman who works hard, as I'll talk about here in a second. But Proverbs outlines all of this, right? Outlines this woman who's flirtatious, who's constantly, latching on to men. And this is something a lot of men, like, you need to listen up, because if this is one piece of advice I can let you know in this video, it's this, guys. Be very aware of flirtatious women, right? Be very aware. In fact, I would almost run from any woman who's outwardly flirtatious, because when a woman is outwardly flirtatious, she is inviting men to, at the very least, view her and see her as a flirtatious woman, right? And why is this a bad thing? Because let's be honest, guys, a lot of men are very forward. Maybe you're not this type of guy, maybe you've never been this type of guy, right? But if you are a forward man, if you are a man who knows what you want, if you are a confident man, guys, the world's your oyster, so to speak, right? Truly it is. And if women are letting themselves be vulnerable like that, if they're just showing themselves to be, sexually open, available, they're letting it all out there, right? With their words, with their actions. A lot of guys, they let that puff up their ego. They're like, oh, it's gotta be me. Something about me. I'm a catch, right? I do something too. I make her a certain way. Couldn't be further from the truth, guys. There's a difference between a woman being flirtatious with you and being genuine, being open, and being respectful, and letting you lead her, right? There's a big difference, right? Sometimes those lines can get blurred. There's a big difference, right? A lot of men, let's just be real, a lot of men are trying to find a porn star, right? A lot of men are trying to find that super seductive, sexy woman who's gonna do anything they want in bed. And a lot of men, guys, I'm gonna say this, a lot of men are basing a woman's, worth, her submissiveness, her value based off of her sexual submissiveness to you. The more sexual experiences you can have with a woman, the variety, the more, whatever you want to call it, right? The experience, the fireworks, the more you can do that, like the better chances of, of having a long-lasting relationship is. It's not the truth, guys. Like, I'm telling you, it's not the truth. I've been there. I'm not saying this to like brag. I'm not saying this to be like, oh, look at me. No, I'm saying it because it's like I lived that life for a little bit because I bought that lie, right? There's nothing wrong with being a man who's able to attract women, but when you act on these things, guys, be very careful because it's going to jade you very quickly. And if you're not careful, if you're not very strong, right, eventually you're going to fall for one of these women or multiple of these women. You're going to tell yourself, you're going to convince yourself after a certain amount of time, like, oh, you know what, maybe she's actually a decent girl. There's nothing wrong with seeing the good side of people, but you will see this woman for what she is at first, and then you will start sleeping with her, and then you will go, oh man, you know what, maybe she would be a good wife, maybe she would be a good mother of my kids. And you're not even thinking anymore, guys. You're not even thinking, like this is another thing Proverbs talks about, is don't live based off of your emotions. A man who is in control of his emotions is more powerful than a fortified city, right? A man who is in control of his emotions is more powerful, has more power than a fortified kingdom. Like, really let that sink in. It says a man without self-control is like a man, or is like a city whose walls are broken down and is overrun, right? And you could look at that from a spiritual standpoint of like, his life is overrun with vices and demons and all these other things. You can look at it as a physical thing where, he basically is at the whim and at the control of other people's manipulation of himself, right? He can't control himself. There's so many things, guys. There's so many things, and we have to realize we have to draw the line somewhere, right? Somewhere has to be truth. We have to look at something and be like, yo, like, this is the truth, this is the way, right? And that's why Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. People ask me all the time, how do I know this is true? How do I know that's true? And I'm like, well, you really don't at the end of the day. News can be telling you this, right? There's a lot of news saying this, a lot of news saying that. There's a lot of people saying this, people saying that. Guys, at the end of the day, the only truth you really have is Jesus, right? He's the only thing that's sure and true. You keep coming back to him, he's there for you. You cry out to him, he's there for you. You need him, he's there for you. He's your savior. He sits at the right hand of God. He is in control, right? We can look to his word we can look to that as well, and we can see the truth in it, guys. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of like my experience here, because I think a lot of guys need to hear this. I really want to make more videos diving into this, because I've realized I need to be more in depth with you guys, right? I've been making a lot of videos very surface level, because I'm gonna be real, it's difficult for me to get into the nitty gritty, right? It's difficult for me to be vulnerable and open, right? In a genuine way, not like a feely emotional, way, but like a genuine way. I think some of that has to do with, obviously, you're afraid of what people are gonna think. You're afraid of what people might say, but you don't learn unless you know, right? And I wish that's the one thing, looking back, I wish people would have been more straight up with me, is specific experiences, specific instances, scenarios, right? People would give me all these like very coded, very broad sort of things, and it's like, cool, yeah, but I need more, right? There needs to be more substance. And truth is, guys, thinking back, I remember my dad telling me, he got married really young, right? He was just living a wild life, got married really young to a woman that ended up taking most of his stuff, and he was in a bad spot, for quite some time. And he always told me that, don't trust women. And there was more to it than that. And the reality of it is he was trying to protect me against the women that seek to do men harm. And I think this is something that's really hard for a lot of men to grasp. This is not a channel about hating women, right? I think men should love women. I think you should love women, right? I think what happens is sometimes, guys, they let themselves fall into this trap. They let themselves fall into this trap of feelings. They buy into the world, right? They buy into what the world's telling them, like, oh, it doesn't matter like how promiscuous she is, or how much promiscuity she's been through. And I've mentioned this on my other videos, guys, but I'm a believer, right? I believe that Jesus can change anybody's life. I also believe that there's a process of sanctification. Some people, Jesus changes, he completely transforms their life all at once. And some people, for whatever reason, it takes years to change, certain things to their life. And I could go into a whole other tangent on that, but I believe that, women can be changed, right? Like, they can be different. They can turn from their old ways, right? If they were a partier, if they were wild, they can turn from their ways. But I also understand that on this earth, we are going to have sometimes, when even, Jesus saves us, right? We're not freed physically on this earth. And this is where I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers. But there are some things that we still have to endure. There's some things that we still have to have faith in God for, right? Guys, I'm gonna be real with you guys. There's some things that you might have done in your past life that might have given you some health problems, might have given you some financial problems, might have given you some mental problems, might have given you, whatever you want to call it, that you might have to deal with till the day you die. Sometimes Jesus frees you from these things. Sometimes, think of it like a thorn in your side, like Paul said. Sometimes God allows that to be there because his grace is sufficient, because the faith that you have. And I don't understand all these things, but I do know that Jesus can save people and he can change them. But be aware, guys, be aware of these women, especially these days, who are talking about how they're changed and how they're, different. And praise be to God if they are. Praise be to Jesus if they are. Absolutely, amen. However, be aware, just like men who say, oh, I'm changed, I've turned from my ways, I'm different, and then they end up being, not who they say they are, right? People lie, guys. I'm gonna be straight up with you. People lie. People have bad intentions. People will say what they gotta say to get what they want. A lot of women these days are afraid they're never gonna get married because of their past, and so they put on this religious mask and they try to lock down a good guy because they're afraid of being abandoned, because they want to have the social status of being married, right? They want to have all these things, and they don't want anything to do with that guy, right? They might go out and sleep with a bunch of dudes when they're married, in this Christian marriage. It happens all the time. It's happening at a faster rate now. And guys, it's not because Jesus doesn't save you. It's not because he doesn't love you. It's not, a lot of people, they're like, what is going on, right? It's the fact that we are broken people. We are broken people, and we are called to be discerning, right? It says that my people perish for their lack of knowledge, guys. How true is that these days? How freaking true is that these days? People believe the first thing they hear by experts, by what the movies tell them. People are living off these scripts they don't even know about, right? I was homeschooled my whole life, so I hated scripts, right? I hated homework. I hated school. And funny enough, a couple years after I was done with school, went to college, and college was a breeze. And I remember all these kids and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, college is so hard." I'm like, "Didn't y'all go to public school? Like, shouldn't this be secondhand to y'all?" I didn't realize that college was completely different. And I hated scripts, right? I hated having to follow a program. I hated all those things, right? You know, if I wanted to wait till the end of the week, if I wanted to wait till one day to do all my homework, I could do that. And I think that's what prepared me for college. But the biggest thing you have to realize, guys, is it isn't about so much, you know, trying to find the perfect woman. It's not trying to find the perfect scenario. It's not trying to find the perfect, you know, a lot of guys are out there, they're trying to find perfect this, perfect that. Everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be just right. You know, this over optimization. I'm probably gonna make a whole video on that because I hate that stuff so much. But so many guys, they're trying to find the perfect woman, right? And they don't even know what that is. They're being told by all these experts that, oh, the perfect woman is an 18 or 19-year-old girl from a small town who's never had any contact with human life outside of her homestead, and she's, you know, a virgin, and she's only been raised in church, and, you know, all these weird specifications, right? It's like that's not the qualifications for like a perfect woman. Yeah, sure, I guess if that's like your version of it, great. But there's also a lot of great women out there who are 25, 30, who have been saving themselves for marriage, or maybe they had like, you know, a mess up or two along the way, right? And they're like, nah, that's not for me. Like that's not how I want to live my life. That's not, you know, like I'm trying to live for God. That's different, right? It's so crazy how we've gotten into this like perfectionist mindset, you know, like be careful when you judge people, right? Because, you know, you point out the speck in your brother's eye or your sister's eye, and you have the log in your own eye. You know, and all these men, we want to find our perfect girl. We want to find this perfect girl. It's like, bro, you know, men right now are cooked. I'm just gonna be real with you. Men are cooked right now. We are so feminine in so many ways. Like, we are pointing fingers at the world and everybody around us, and we're telling them that it's their fault. Like, it's women's fault. I can't find a good girl. It's women's fault, like, that the world's falling apart. I can't support myself. It's like, dude, I'm gonna be real with you guys. If we had some sort of depression, or we had some draft, or we are cooked, because guys don't have balls anymore. I'll be straight up with you guys. We don't have balls anymore. We are living life neutered. Guys, we are living life neutered. We are living life day to day. Just, hope I make it through. Life's so tough. I'll never afford a house. I'll never afford a girlfriend. I'll never afford a wife. I'll never afford this. Guys, let me tell you something. There was a time in my life where I was $50,000 in debt. I had a car that needed a bunch of work. Thank God it still worked. It never fully broke down. It had a lot of things that needed to be done. I had $17 in my bank account. I tell this story multiple times because I want to drive this point home. I was trying to figure out if I was going to have enough to buy food, or if I was going to have enough to buy gas, put gas in my car, so that I could go do like Uber Eats, DoorDash, grocery delivery, so I could make money, right? You don't know how tough life is until you are a paycheck $17 away from being on the street. No health insurance, nothing to your name. The only thing you have to your name is debt, right? You have a bunch of stuff going on in your personal life. You're trying to figure out all this stuff. You're in a mental crisis. You're in this, like, you don't know what's going on. You're just trying to fight, guys. And that's sometimes what life is. It's a fight. And guys, we gotta fight. We have to fight. And this is all tying in, trust me. We have to fight. we have to fight like there's no tomorrow, right? We have to focus on today. We have to make the most of today, right? Everybody's talking about, oh, you need to network. Oh, you need to be doing a side hustle. You need to be doing this. You need to be maxing out your income. You need to be, guys, you know how you do that stuff? Instead of trying to sit back on your couch, smoking weed, right? Or even if you don't smoke weed, just kind of sitting around, just like analyzing this crap, just thinking about it a bunch, just, oh my gosh, I gotta figure it out. I gotta come up with a master plan. I gotta, invest all my money into crypto. I gotta figure out how all the stocks work. You know how you do it, guys? You do it day by day. You take advantage of the day that is in front of you. You max out every single day. If it's a Thursday and you're going to work today, guess what? You go to work with the best attitude you can possibly have. You be a genuine, down-to-earth guy. You be a kind guy. You be a guy who stands up for himself, who stands up for others, who calls out, BS when it needs to be called out. Guys, we live in a world, I get it. We live in a world where it seems like it's scary to stand up for yourself. It's scary to say things that might ruffle people's feathers or ask questions or go against the status quo, because everybody else is just a yes man or yes woman. But guys, I guarantee the biggest motivator in my life, especially now, and it's been kind of snowballing with time, right? Because you learn these things with time, has been you stand up for what is right. You stand up for what is right every single time. Because when you do that, when you stand up for righteousness, justice, you stand up for those things, you stand up for God, right? You stand up for the kingdom of righteousness. God is with you. We get so caught up in the world, right? Because we live in this mindset. That's why I honestly, guys, recently I deleted Instagram off my phone, because there's something about it. Not even YouTube Shorts comes close to it. There's something about Instagram, at least for me. I think a lot of people are realizing this though. Where you get bombarded, brainwashed with this weird alternate reality of the world, and it starts to influence the way you think and see the world. And it's the algorithm, it's the AI, whatever you want to call it. It's not helping you. I had to actually step back and go, is this benefiting me in any way? No. Every blue moon I'll see something that's like a really cool fact, but if someone asked me right now, what's the coolest, greatest thing you've ever learned off of Instagram, I couldn't tell them. I couldn't tell them one thing that changed my life off of Instagram, right? I'm gonna be real with you. And a lot of my friends, I'm gonna be real too, a lot of them, it's cool to see some of the recent stuff that happens in their life, but a lot of them only post on Instagram maybe once every 6 months to a year now. That's what Instagram's turned into. It's like the highlight reels, right? It's like the big crazy moments. I got engaged, I got married, I had a kid, right? Like the big stuff. People don't use social media the same way anymore. Everybody's hooked on the sending each other the reels and the memes and all that stuff, right? Yeah, it's funny, but guys, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But the main thing I'm trying to drive home here is standing up for truth. And with women, guys, I'm telling you, my dad was right, because look at Proverbs, guys. I'm just gonna say that, right? I've been going off on so many different tangents in this video. I hope it makes sense to you guys. It makes sense to me. But you gotta find truth somewhere. You gotta find truth somewhere. And if I could just kind of end the video with this, guys, you have to find truth somewhere. And I believe that the truth is in the Bible. I believe the truth is in Proverbs, right? The truth is in the people, your father, your grandfather, who's been telling you these things that you know is true, right? Hopefully you didn't have a really wimpy beta dad, right? I think a lot of guys, they've had good advice given to them, and yet they give it up because it's comfortable to go after the easy women. It's comfortable to go after the loose women, right? It's easier, right? It makes you feel good. It gives you an ego boost. I'm telling you guys, it would drag you down into a pit, right? It just takes one, right? That's why, guys, I think it's great to get dating experience. It's good to go out with women, but if you do, guys, make sure that you're compatible with a woman, right? So many guys are desperate. They're so desperate, they'll go for anything. They'll go for the woman who treats them wrong, who disrespects them, who gives them some attention. It is kind of halfway in, halfway out, maybe wants to sleep with them, maybe he's flirtatious with them, maybe just wants to hang out with them and talk to them, right? You have to be aware of these motives. Read Proverbs, guys. It tells you exactly what to stay away from, right? A boisterous woman, a loud woman, a woman who goes out and like comes to you, right? That's kind of a red flag. I don't remember any story in the scripture. There's only one. I think it was like Boaz and Ruth. That was a very unique situation. I can't remember a time where like a good godly woman went and sought out a husband, went to a man, went seeking and being, outgoing with men. And even in that instance with Boaz and Ruth, right? Like she was basically told, like it was, he was a godly man, ended up being a godly marriage, a godly union. It ended up being something good, right? But Ruth wasn't just going around like doing that with all the men, right? So if you find a woman, guys, she needs to love you for your character and your love for Jesus more than anything else, right? Not your money, not your time, not your looks, not your charm, none of that stuff, right? And the only way you're really gonna find it, guys, I'm gonna end the video with this. Because, we can point the finger and say, stay away from these women, go for these women. The thing is, at the end of the day, you have to trust yourself. The first quality, I think it's so funny. Go to Proverbs 31 after this video. Look up, I think starts at verse 9 or 10. I always forget. But it's when it talks about the woman. Because the first 8, 9 verses talk about the man. And then the next 20 verses talk about the woman, right? First quality. The first quality that Proverbs talks about is the heart of her husband trusts in her. Trust, guys, trust. This is so big. We forget about this all the freaking time. Especially in this day and age where everybody's is out to get each other. We're all deceiving each other. It's all about who can hurt each other first, or who can, break up first, or who can hurt the other, who can get the one up on the other. No. The heart of her husband, guys, this is very intimate language. The heart of her husband trusts in her at all times. I think that the next thing is something about, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. It's either that her worth is I think the first thing is that her worth is far above rubies, or like any treasure. The heart of her husband safely trusts in her, right? That's like the first quality of her. And then I think it's something like she does him good and not evil all the days of her life, right? And so as men, we get with these women who give us a hard time, right? These quarrelsome women, right? Proverbs talks about it's better to be in the corner of a housetop alone, right? A lot of you guys are like, I'm alone. Guys, it's better to be alone in the corner of a housetop in a little studio apartment, in a little tiny closet, right? Than with a contentious woman. Because a lot of these women, they might be kind of sweet to you, but it's very easy to tell, very quickly easy to tell if these women are going to give you a hard time or not. A lot of them will. And a lot of us guys are so desperate for companionship, for sex, for some poon, for whatever you want to call it, that we look over these things and we go, it's okay, I can change her. Nah, she's not really that bad. Oh, this is cute. She's giving me a hard time. No, it's not, guys. It's really not. Because there's actually feminine, sweet, kind women out there who, believe it or not, will not do these things to you, who will bring you good, who will add to your life, multiply to your life, who are like walking in such elegance and grace in God that you go, how in the world could I ever think that there could be bad, all women are bad, right? That's another thing. I'm gonna make a video on that, all women are bad. It's BS, guys. So listen to your fathers, read the book of Proverbs. Guys, stand for truth. Be truthful to yourself. Stop giving up on your boundaries. Stop giving up on your ethics and your morals, the things that are right. Stop going back on, because then you're going to attract those type of women. You're going to attract the women who are like that as well, who are kind of slimy, who are kind of schemy, right? Who are kind of like, you know what, this guy, is kind of nice. Kind of doesn't have a backbone, right? He kind of gives way before, what I do and say. He kind of just does what I want. He's kind of a yes man. Okay, yeah. She might be half in, half out, guys. That's why a lot of men attract these, bipolar, narcissistic, whatever you want to call it, women. For this reason, So be aware of that, guys. Be aware. that's what I have for you guys. If you have comments, let me know below, and I'll see y'all, Lord willing, in the next one.